What the hell is that girl doing in our lobby? Good heavens, smells like a slum. You. The exit is behind you. This isn't a homeless shelter, darling.
One shooed her like a stray dog.
Go! Before I call the police.
All six laughed. Her jaw clenched. She dug nails into her palms and whispered,
I have an appointment at 10:30.
An appointment?
One choked on his coffee.
Little girl, the only appointment you need is with a bar of soap.
45 minutes. No one asked her name. Then she stood up. She walked straight into their meeting room and sat down in the chair that sent shivers down the spines of the six men. Six faces turned ashen. They trembled at the thought of who the black woman really was. Let me take you back to the beginning. Before the insults. Before the lobby. Before everything fell apart for six people who had no idea what was coming. 5:38 in the morning. Manhattan was still half asleep. The sky was that bruised shade of purple right before sunrise. Taxi horns echoed faintly from 40 floors below. Madison Parker stood barefoot in her penthouse kitchen. The cold marble tiles pressed against her feet. Steam curled from a chipped ceramic mug that read, "World's okay, Mom," a birthday gift from her 18-year-old daughter, Zoe. It was the ugliest mug in a kitchen full of hand-blown Italian glass. It was also the only one she ever used. She sipped her coffee, black, no sugar, same as every morning for the last 20 years. On the counter, a tablet glowed with spreadsheets and legal documents, highlighted in yellow, annotated in red, sticky notes everywhere. This was not a woman who delegated the details. This was a woman who read every line, every clause, every footnote, because she learned a long time ago that the devil doesn't hide in the details. He hides in the things people assume you won't bother to read. So who is Madison Parker? She grew up on the east side of Detroit. Her father, Earl Parker, worked the line at a Ford plant for 31 years. Her mother, Dolores, cleaned office buildings at night so Madison could attend Catholic school during the day. They never took a vacation. They never owned a new car. But every Sunday after church, Earl would sit Madison on his knee and say, "Baby girl, nobody gives you a seat at the table. You build your own table, and you make it bigger than theirs." Earl died of an undiagnosed heart condition when Madison was 19. No insurance, no savings, just a funeral bill, and a daughter who decided right then that she would never, ever be powerless again. She worked 2 jobs through Howard University, graduated top of her class, got her MBA from Wharton on a full scholarship. By 28, she'd bought her first rental property with money she saved living in a studio apartment the size of a parking space. By 35, that one property became 12, then 50, then a fund, then a firm. Today, Sterling Holdings Capital manages $58 billion in assets. Madison Parker is the sole founder, majority owner, and chairwoman of the board. And as of 8 a.m. this morning, Sterling Holdings had officially completed its $2.4 billion acquisition of Whitman Financial Group, a 116-year-old family-controlled wealth management firm headquartered in Midtown Manhattan. The deal closed with a unanimous board vote, 9-0, no objections, no delays. Madison now controlled every floor, every desk, every dollar inside that building. There was just one small problem. Nobody at Whitman had ever met her in person. The entire negotiation happened through lawyers and conference calls. The outgoing executives had seen her name on emails, but most of them never even opened those emails. She was a signature at the bottom of a page they barely skimmed. They had no idea what she looked like. Her chief of staff, Olivia Carter, walked into the kitchen holding a navy garment bag and a leather binder. "Car's downstairs in 20. Press team is on standby. You want the full arrival, security escort, photographer, the works?" Madison shook her head. "Cancel all of it." Olivia paused. "All of it?" "I'm going alone. No escort, No cameras, no name badge. Olivia set the binder down slowly. Madison, they don't know your face. If you walk in there looking like what? Madison turned, calm, patient, the faintest shadow of a smile. Olivia exhaled, like someone they won't take seriously. That's exactly why I'm going. Madison set down the chipped mug, picked up her coat, charcoal wool, no labels, a simple cream blouse underneath, no jewelry, no heels, flat black shoes that didn't make a sound on marble. She looked like a woman who might be visiting HR for a temp position. And that was the point. You learn more about a company in 30 minutes at the front desk than in 30 hours of board meetings, she said quietly. People show you who they are when they think nobody important is watching. Olivia watched her walk toward the elevator. She wanted to argue. She didn't. Because when Madison Parker made a decision, the only thing left to do was watch it play out. 9:48 a.m. Madison pushed through the revolving glass doors of Whitman Tower. The lobby hit her all at once. Cold air that smelled like leather and fresh lilies. Italian marble so polished she could see her own reflection. A brass plaque on the wall. Whitman Financial Group, established 1908. 20-foot ceilings. A silence so thick it felt like walking into a cathedral. This was a building designed to make ordinary people feel small. Madison walked to the reception desk. Behind it sat a young woman, early 20s, blonde hair pinned back, nervous smile. Her name tag said, Sarah Johnson. Good morning, Madison said. I have a 10:30 with Mr. Whitman and the leadership team. Sarah's fingers moved across her keyboard. She scrolled again. Her smile faded. I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't see your name on today's guest list. Could you spell it for me? Parker. Madison Parker. More scrolling. Nothing. I'm really sorry, Sarah whispered. They didn't put you on the list. Could you take a seat while I make a call? Madison nodded. She sat on the leather bench across from the elevator bank, crossed her legs, portfolio on her lap, phone face down beside her, and waited. She didn't know it yet, but the clock had just started on the most expensive 45 minutes in Whitman Financial Group's history. Minute 1 to 8. Richard Brown, head of sales. The elevator chimed at 9:53 a.m. Richard Brown stepped out with a Starbucks cup and AirPods in both ears, laughing into a phone call, something about a yacht club in the Hamptons. He spotted Madison. His laugh dried up. He pulled one AirPod out, looked her up and down, slowly, deliberately, like inspecting something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. Excuse me, the deliveries entrance is around the back. He didn't ask. He told her. Or did you not see the sign? Madison kept her voice level. I'm here for a meeting. Richard snorted. He turned to Sarah, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. Sarah, can somebody help this woman find the service elevator? I think she's very confused about which building she's in. He walked away before she could respond. Didn't look back. Men like Richard never did. Sarah mouthed, I'm so sorry, from behind her desk. Madison gave her a small nod. Then she opened her portfolio, uncapped a fountain pen, and wrote in clean, precise handwriting, Richard Brown, head of sales, 9:53 a.m., minute 9 to 16. Bradley Wilson, COO, 10:02 a.m. Bradley Wilson stepped out alongside Katherine Anderson, Golf magazine under his arm. She had a green juice and a look on her face like she owned the air everyone else was breathing. Bradley noticed Madison immediately. He nudged Katherine with his elbow and tilted his head toward the bench. Who let her sit in the executive lobby, he said, not whispering, not even trying. Does this look like a bus station to you? Catherine glanced over, smirked. Maybe she wandered in from the street. It happens. Bradley turned to Sarah. New girl, what's the policy on loitering? Because I know for a fact we don't let random people camp out in our lobby. Sarah opened her mouth. Sir, she said she has... I didn't ask what she said. I asked what the policy is. They walked past Madison without another word. Bradley's cologne, sharp, aggressive, far too much, lingered in the air behind him like a warning. Madison's pen moved again. Bradley Wilson, COO, 10:02 a.m. Catherine Anderson, CFO, 10:02 a.m. Minute 17 to 24. Victoria Davis, SVP of Human Resources. Victoria Davis exited the elevator at 10:11 a.m., carrying a stack of folders and a superiority complex the size of the building she worked in. She walked straight to Sarah's desk. She didn't look at Madison. She looked at the idea of Madison and found it offensive. Sarah, you know the rules. We don't let walk-ins linger on the executive floor. If she's here for a temp interview, send her to the second floor. Ma'am, she said she has a 10:30 with Mr. Whitman. Victoria let out a single, sharp laugh, like a dog bark. With Gregory? Oh, sweetie, no. She shook her head slowly. That is not happening today. Not for her. Then she turned to Madison, walked over, stood directly in front of her, and spoke slowly, each word stretched out, as if talking to a child who couldn't understand English. Ma'am, who exactly are you here to see? Because I think you're very confused about where you are. Madison looked up at her. I'd prefer to wait, thank you. Victoria stared for 3 full seconds. Then she rolled her eyes so hard her whole head moved with them. She walked away, muttering just loud enough to hear, Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Victoria Davis, SVP, Human Resources, 10:11 a.m., minute 25 to 32. Helena Moore, General Counsel. Helena Moore arrived at 10:19 a.m. She was the kind of woman who entered a room and immediately started calculating who she could sue in it. She saw Madison on the bench and turned to Sarah with the urgency of someone reporting a crime.
Has anyone called security? That woman has been sitting there for over half an hour. We have confidential conversations in this lobby. This is a liability.
Sarah's voice cracked. Ma'am, she says she has an appointment.
I'll handle this.
Helena walked to Madison like a prosecutor approaching a witness, stood over her, arms crossed, chin up. Ma'am, I'm the general counsel of this firm. I need to see some form of identification. Right now. Madison met her gaze. I'm a guest. My host will be with me shortly. If you cannot produce identification, I will have you escorted from this building. And depending on what's in that bag of yours, I may involve the police. She leaned in closer, close enough that Madison could smell her perfume. Cold, floral, expensive. We've had people like you try this before. It doesn't end well. People like you. Madison wrote the name without blinking. Helena Moore, General Counsel. 10:19 a.m. Minute 33 to 40. Catherine Anderson returns. Catherine came back through the lobby at 10:28 a.m. with a fresh coffee and a fresh attitude. She saw Madison still sitting on the bench and stopped dead. Oh my God, you're still here? She laughed in disbelief. I thought Helena dealt with you. What are you, deaf? Madison said nothing. Her pen moved across the portfolio. Are you writing things down? Catherine stepped closer. Honey, this is embarrassing. For you. Whatever little lawsuit fantasy you're cooking up in that notebook, trust me, our legal team eats people like you for breakfast. She leaned down, voice dropping low, sharp as a blade. Let me be very clear. You don't belong here. You never did. And the sooner you accept that, the less humiliating this gets. Madison looked at her, calm, steady, not a flicker. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I'll remember that. Catherine flinched, just slightly, at hearing her own name. She hadn't introduced herself. She hadn't thought she needed to. She shook it off, turned, and walked toward the elevator. And then a quiet thing happened. A small thing. But the kind of small thing that later would feel enormous. Thomas Williams, the lobby security guard, mid-50s, also black, walked over to the side table next to Madison. He set down a glass of water without a word. He just looked at her. She looked at him. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. Two people recognizing each other across a room that refused to see either of them. Madison picked up the glass, took a sip, and nodded. Catherine Anderson, CFO. 10:28 a.m., minute 41 to 45. Gregory Whitman, CEO. 10:36 a.m., Gregory Whitman finally appeared. He stepped off the elevator like a man who believed the building existed because he allowed it to. Tailored navy suit, silver cufflinks shaped like the Whitman family crest. A silk tie that cost more than most people's rent. He was 10 minutes late for his own meeting. He did not care. Men like Gregory Whitman were never late. Everyone else was simply early. Sarah seized her chance. Mr. Whitman, excuse me. This woman has been waiting since 9:48. She says she has a 10:30 with you. Gregory looked at Madison the way a man looks at a parking ticket on his windshield. A minor annoyance, not even worth reading. I don't have any meeting with... He waved vaguely in her direction. That? Sarah, get her out of here. The new chairwoman is supposed to tour the floor in 20 minutes. I will not have my lobby looking like this when she arrives. He chuckled at his own joke. The other executives, now gathered near the elevator, chuckled with him. Whoever she is, Gregory said over his shoulder, give her a voucher for the deli downstairs and send her on her way. Problem solved. He pressed the elevator button. The doors opened, and then Madison Parker closed her portfolio, clicked her pen shut, and stood up. Not fast, not dramatic, slowly. The way a judge stands before delivering a verdict. She smoothed the front of her coat, picked up the glass of water Thomas had brought her, took one last sip, set it down gently on the side table, and she walked toward the elevator. Madison walked toward the executive elevator like she had every right to be there, because she did. Helena Moore saw her first. She moved fast, stepping directly in front of the elevator doors, blocking the path with her entire body, one hand raised like a traffic cop. Ma'am, stop. Her voice bounced off marble and glass. I already told you, you are not authorized to access the upper floors. Madison stopped. I have an appointment. Please step aside. Step aside? Helena's nostrils flared. Her jaw tightened. You've been squatting in this lobby for nearly an hour. You refuse to show ID. You refuse to leave. And now you think you can just waltz onto the executive floor? She snapped her fingers toward the security station. Hard. Loud. The sound cracked through the lobby like a whip. Security! I need hands over here. Now! 2 guards jogged over. Both white, both young, both built like they played college football last semester. Their boots squeaked against the polished marble. Thomas Williams watched from his post near the front door. His jaw clenched. his hands curled into fists at his sides. But the corporate hierarchy held him in place like an invisible chain. Helena pointed at Madison. This woman has been trespassing for 45 minutes. She refuses to identify herself. I want her belongings searched, and I want her physically removed from this building. Right now. Bradley Wilson appeared behind Helena, drawn by the noise. He loosened his tie like a man rolling up his sleeves before a street fight. What's the holdup? He looked at Madison and shook his head slowly. You're still playing this game? Open the bag, sweetheart. You cooperate, or we call NYPD. Those are your only two options. Madison's voice stayed level. I do not consent to a search of my personal belongings. You don't consent? Bradley laughed, short, ugly, loud. Lady, you're standing in our building. You don't get to consent to a damn thing. He stepped forward and grabbed the leather portfolio from her lap. It happened fast. The portfolio opened as he yanked it, and a single sheet of paper slid halfway out. Sterling Holdings letterhead. Printed in bold across the top. Board Chairwoman. Introductory remarks. 10:30 a.m. Bradley's eyes moved across the words. For 1/2 second, one fraction of a heartbeat, every drop of color drained from his face. Then he shoved the paper back inside, tossed the portfolio at Madison's chest. Hard. Probably forged, he muttered, wiping his hands on his trousers like he'd touched something filthy. People print whatever they want at Staples these days. Means nothing. Madison caught the portfolio with one hand. Didn't blink, didn't flinch. She pressed it against her body the way a mother holds a child someone just tried to grab. Richard Brown circled back from the elevator, sensing a show. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, grinning like a man watching a street performer. What do we have here? A celebrity visit? He tilted his head at Madison. Let me guess. You Googled our address and figured you'd come try your luck, score a little settlement check, maybe get a payout to go away quietly. Victoria Davis joined the circle next, 5 of them now. 5 executives forming a wall around one woman sitting on a bench. 5 tailored suits, 5 sets of eyes staring down at her, like she was something scraped off the bottom of a shoe. Victoria crossed her arms tight against her chest. All right, I'm going to be very generous and offer you a choice. Option 1, you walk out that door right now on your own 2 feet and we forget this ever happened. She held up one finger, paused, let the silence sit. Option 2, you keep standing here and I personally guarantee you spend tonight in central booking. Handcuffs, fingerprints, mugshot, the full experience. She tilted her head and smiled. So which is it going to be? Madison looked at each of them, one by one, slowly. The way a person memorizes a face they intend to see again very soon. Then she spoke, calm, even. I'd like each of you to state your full name and your title. Catherine Anderson, who had drifted back to watch, nearly spit out her coffee. You're going to, what, sue us? She wiped her lip with the back of her hand. Honey, do you have any idea how many lawyers work on the 14th floor? You couldn't afford the parking meter outside this building. Gregory Whitman pushed through the circle. He brought his hands together in one slow, sarcastic clap. The sound bounced off the lobby walls. All right, I've seen enough. He looked Madison up and down one last time. Whoever you are, this is the most pathetic shakedown I've witnessed in 20 years. Whitman Financial has stood here since 1908. We have buried bigger problems than you before breakfast. He smiled. Cold. Empty. The smile of a man who had already erased her from his memory. Last chance. Walk out that door, or get dragged out. Makes no difference to me. Madison did not move. Not 1 inch. Not one muscle. Helena lost her patience entirely. She turned to the guards, and her voice came out sharp enough to cut glass. I said escort her out. Now. Do your jobs. One of the guards stepped forward. He grabbed Madison's elbow, not gently. His fingers pressed into her arm hard enough to leave bruises through the fabric. The kind of grip you only use on a person you've already decided doesn't matter. Madison did not pull away. She turned her head slowly, looked directly into his eyes, and said, almost gently, almost kindly, Sir, remove your hand. You are not going to want this on the record. Something in her voice made him stop. Not her words, the certainty behind them. The terrifying, unshakable calm of a woman who was not afraid. Not of him. Not of any of them. Not of a single person in this building. He released her arm, slowly, like letting go of something that had burned him. Sarah Johnson broke. She ran out from behind the reception desk, heels clicking frantically on marble, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her voice came out raw and cracked and desperate. Stop! Please! Just let me make one phone call. One call, that's all I'm asking. Please! Gregory didn't look at her. Sarah, sit down, or you are fired before lunch. Sarah froze mid-step. Her whole body shook. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She looked at Madison, eyes wide, helpless, devastated, then turned and walked back to her desk on trembling legs. She sat down, covered her mouth with both hands, and said nothing. From across the lobby, a voice cut through everything. Deep, steady, clear as a bell. Thomas Williams. Mr. Whitman, sir. Thomas stood at full height. I think you need to check the guest list one more time. Gregory rolled his eyes. Thomas, mind your station. The adults are handling this. Thomas didn't move, but his eyes stayed locked on Madison, and hers locked on his. And in that silent exchange was everything neither of them could say. Everything they both already knew. Gregory checked his watch, straightened his tie, cracked his neck like a man who had already moved on to the next agenda item. All right, this circus is finished. Let's go upstairs. We have a chairwoman to impress. The 6 executives turned toward the elevator. Bradley pressed the button. The doors slid open with a soft chime. And from behind them, Madison Parker's voice came. Quiet, clear, each syllable landing like a stone dropped into still water. I'll ride up with you. They froze. Gregory half turned. His smile twitched. Excuse me? I said I'll ride up with you. To the boardroom. Bradley forced out an uncomfortable laugh. Sweetheart, I don't think you understand how... Madison took one step forward, then another. She removed her charcoal coat and folded it over her arm. Underneath, a perfectly tailored cream silk blouse. She reached into her portfolio and pulled out a small enameled lapel pin. Gold and onyx. The unmistakable crest of Sterling Holdings Capital. She clipped it to her collar. Slowly, deliberately. The tiny click of the clasp echoed through the silent lobby like a hammer falling. The elevator doors stood open. Madison stepped inside, turned around, faced all 6 of them. Her eyes were still, her back was straight, her voice did not waver. After you. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The lobby air turned solid. The espresso machine hissed in the corner. Somewhere far below on Park Avenue, a taxi honked. The sound came from another world entirely. 6 executives stood frozen in their own lobby, staring at the woman they had spent 45 minutes trying to destroy, with something rising in their chests that none of them could name. But they would, very soon. Nobody spoke in the elevator. Gregory stepped in first, then Helena, then Bradley, Catherine, Victoria, and Richard, filing in one by one like prisoners walking into a courtroom. Madison stood at the front, facing the doors. They stood behind her, shoulder to shoulder, breathing too loud. The doors closed. Floor 4, floor 9, floor 15. The numbers ticked upward on the digital panel. Each floor felt like a year. Catherine was the first to crack. She forced a smile. Too wide, too bright, the kind of smile that hurts to hold. So, ma'am, I think maybe there's been a misunderstanding. If you could just tell us, I'd prefer silence, thank you. 4 words. Catherine's mouth snapped shut like a mousetrap. Floor 22. Floor 29. Floor 34. The air inside the elevator was thick with cologne and sweat and something else. Something none of them wanted to name. Bradley tugged at his collar. Richard stared at the ceiling. Helena's fingers twitched at her side. Victoria pressed her back against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. Gregory stood perfectly still, but his left eye twitched. Once. Twice. Floor 38. Floor 41. Floor 43. The doors opened, and standing on the other side, arms crossed, spine straight, face sharp enough to cut steel, was Olivia Carter. She didn't look at the 6 executives. She looked past them, through them, like they were made of glass. She stepped forward and said, in a voice clear enough to carry down the entire hallway, "Chairwoman Parker, the board is ready for you. Will you be requiring HR to be present for the next agenda item?" Chairwoman. The word hit the lobby like a thunderclap. Gregory's jaw dropped open, literally dropped, like a hinge that had come loose. Helena grabbed the elevator railing behind her. Bradley made a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. Victoria covered her mouth with both hands. Richard's Starbucks cup slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. Coffee splashed across his Italian leather shoes. He didn't notice. Catherine didn't move at all. She just stood there, blinking, like someone had unplugged her brain and was waiting for it to reboot. Madison stepped out of the elevator without looking back. She walked down a long hallway lined with portraits, oil paintings in gilded frames. Every former chairman of Whitman Financial Group, stretching back over a century. All white, all male, all staring down from the walls with the same expression, the quiet, inherited confidence of men who had never been questioned in their lives. Madison walked past every single one of them. At the end of the hallway, double mahogany doors. Olivia opened them. The boardroom spread out before her, a massive oval table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, and 12 directors already standing. 6 of them were new, appointed by Sterling Holdings 2 weeks ago. They knew exactly who Madison was. Chairwoman Parker, welcome. The remaining 6 old guard Whitman directors looked confused. Their eyes darted between Madison and the 6 executives stumbling in behind her, pale, sweating, unraveling. Madison walked to the head of the table. She pulled out the chair, the chairman's seat. Dark leather, brass rivets, the most powerful chair in the building. She sat down. The leather creaked softly beneath her. She placed her portfolio on the table, opened it, smoothed the pages flat with both hands. Then she looked up. Mr. Whitman, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Davis, Mr. Brown, Ms. Moore. She gestured toward 6 empty chairs along the side wall, not at the table, against the wall, like an audience. Please, sit. They sat. Nobody argued. Nobody breathed. Gregory cleared his throat. His voice came out cracked, thin, a shadow of what it had been 10 minutes ago. Chairwoman Parker, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We had absolutely no idea. That is correct, Mr. Whitman. Madison's voice was soft, almost gentle, but underneath it was granite. You had no idea. For 45 minutes, you had no idea. And that is the entire problem. Richard leaned forward. His face was gray. Ma'am, that was just... It was office banter. I would never actually... Madison turned to Olivia. Play the footage, from the beginning. A 96-inch screen descended from the ceiling behind the boardroom table. The lights dimmed automatically. And then the lobby surveillance footage began. Time-stamped. High definition. Crystal clear audio captured by the building's own legally installed security cameras. Richard's voice filled the room first. The deliveries entrance is around the back. Then Bradley. Does this look like a bus station to you? Victoria. That is not happening today. Not for her. Helena. We've had people like you try this before. Catherine. You don't belong here. You never did. Gregory. Give her a voucher for the deli downstairs. Every word, every sneer, every dismissive wave of the hand, played back in front of 12 board members in absolute, crushing silence. When the footage ended, one of the old guard directors put his face in his hands. Another pushed his chair back from the table and stared at the ceiling. Madison let the silence hold for 5 full seconds. Then she spoke. Sterling Holdings completed its $2.4 billion acquisition of Whitman Financial Group at 8 a.m. this morning. As of 9 a.m., I am chairwoman of this board. And as of right now, I am exercising the full authority granted to me under Section 4 of the merger agreement, in accordance with the unanimous resolution passed by this board last Friday. She closed her portfolio. Let's begin. Madison didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She pulled a single sheet of paper from her portfolio, held it in front of her with both hands, and read it the way a judge reads a verdict, steady, measured, final. Effective immediately, Gregory Whitman is removed as Chief Executive Officer. Gregory's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Catherine Anderson is removed as Chief Financial Officer. Catherine gripped the armrest of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Bradley Wilson is removed as Chief Operating Officer. Bradley's head dropped. He stared at the floor between his shoes. Victoria Davis is removed as Senior Vice President of Human Resources. Victoria made a sound, a small, strangled whimper, like the air had been punched out of her lungs. Richard Brown is removed as Head of Sales. Richard's face was gray. His hands trembled in his lap. Helena Moore is removed as General Counsel. Helena sat rigid. Her jaw locked. Her eyes burned. But she said nothing. Madison set the paper down. All 6 terminations are for cause. Gross misconduct and violation of company values pursuant to Section 12.3 of your respective employment agreements. Olivia walked down the row and placed a white envelope in each of their laps. Inside, a single-page termination letter, signed by the board secretary, dated and stamped. The room was silent. 12 board members sat frozen. Some looked at the table. Some looked at the wall. None of them looked at the 6 people being fired. Gregory was the first to speak. His voice shook like a building in a storm. "Madison, Chairwoman Parker, please. My grandfather built this company with his bare hands. My family name is on this building. There has to be a conversation, a severance discussion, something." Madison looked at him. "There will be no severance. Termination for cause forfeits all unvested equity, deferred compensation, and performance bonuses. Your lawyers will confirm." Victoria broke next. She didn't just crack, she crumbled. Her shoulders folded inward. Her voice came out thin and wet and desperate. "I have 2 children in private school. Please, I'm begging you. I'll apologize, publicly, whatever you want. Just don't." Madison paused, and for the first time, her voice softened. Just barely. Just enough. "Ms. Davis, you ran human resources. You personally signed off on the diversity and inclusion statement that is hanging right now in a frame in the lobby downstairs. You looked at me this morning and told me I was confused about where I was. You threatened me with handcuffs." She let that sit for a moment. "There are 1,200 women of color who work in this company. You were responsible for their dignity, their safety, their sense of belonging. I cannot keep you in this seat." Victoria pressed both hands over her face. Her shoulders shook. Helena was the last to try. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and went for the only weapon she had left. "This is wrongful termination. Every one of us has rights under New York labor law. You will be sued. I promise you that." Madison turned to her, calm, almost amused. "Ms. Moore, you have every right to sue. And I have 45 minutes of high-definition security footage, 6 first-hand witnesses, a SOX-protected complaint filed by a 24-year-old receptionist, and a guard whose elbow grab is captured on 3 separate camera angles." She leaned forward, just slightly. "Please, sue me. I welcome it." Helena's mouth closed. It didn't open again. Madison nodded to Olivia. "Escort our former colleagues to collect their personal belongings, 25 minutes each, then out through the front lobby." Security arrived within 90 seconds. 4 guards. One of them was Thomas Williams. Thomas walked behind Gregory Whitman as they moved toward his corner office. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His presence said everything. One by one, the 6 former executives packed cardboard boxes under the watch of uniformed security. One by one, they were walked through the lobby, past the marble floors, past the brass plaque, past the leather bench where Madison had sat for 45 minutes, and past Sarah Johnson, who was no longer sitting at the reception desk. Because 30 minutes ago, Olivia Carter had handed her a new employment letter, executive assistant to the chairwoman, effective immediately. Sarah stood by the elevator, back straight, eyes dry, watching. A line of employees had gathered along the hallway. Some watched in silence. Some whispered. Some held up their phones and recorded. By 4 p.m., the footage would be on TikTok, X, and Instagram. By 6 p.m., it would have 16 million views. But right now, the only thing that mattered was this. Gregory Whitman, grandson of the founder, stood on the sidewalk of Park Avenue, holding a cardboard box. He looked up at the building. 43 floors of glass and steel. The lights on the top floor were on. He was no longer welcome inside. Getting fired was just the appetizer. The main course was coming. and it was going to destroy them. Within 72 hours of the terminations, Sterling Holdings' legal team, working in coordination with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, filed a federal civil rights complaint against all 6 former executives. The lobby incident wasn't listed as an isolated event. It was listed as the final exhibit in a documented, decade-long pattern of racial discrimination at Whitman Financial Group. Madison gave one interview, just one. She sat down with Linda Hayes, an investigative business journalist at one of the country's most respected national outlets, in a quiet office on the 43rd floor. No makeup team, no PR handler, just Madison, a glass of water, and the truth. The story dropped 3 days later. The headline ran across every screen in America. The 45-minute audit, how one billionaire caught an entire C-suite on their own cameras. It went viral within an hour, shared 1.2 million times in the first day alone, read aloud on cable news, debated on morning talk shows, printed on protest signs, turned into a hashtag that wouldn't stop trending. But the headline was only the beginning, because what happened next made the lobby look like a misunderstanding. During the post-acquisition forensic audit, a standard procedure Sterling Holdings performed on every company it acquired, Madison's team uncovered something the 6 executives had been hiding for years. It wasn't just rudeness. It wasn't just arrogance. It was a system, a carefully maintained, deliberately concealed system of denying loans, promotions, raises, and client accounts to Black and Latino employees and customers, in direct violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. The numbers were staggering. 286 affected employees. People who had been passed over for promotions they earned. People whose performance reviews were deliberately downgraded. People who were quietly pushed out and replaced. 1,094 affected clients. Black and Latino families who were denied wealth management accounts, steered toward inferior financial products, or charged higher fees than white clients with identical portfolios. Estimated total damages, $89 million in suppressed wages, denied opportunities, and predatory fee structures, exposed across 9 years of internal records that someone had tried very hard to bury. The case was referred to the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission on the same day. And that's when everything accelerated. A federal grand jury was convened in the Southern District of New York. After 6 weeks of testimony, sealed documents, and forensic data analysis, the grand jury returned indictments against 3 of the 6 former executives. Gregory Whitman, conspiracy to commit civil rights violations, wire fraud, obstruction of a federal investigation. Bradley Wilson, conspiracy, wire fraud, falsification of employment records. Helena Moore, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence. During the investigation, federal agents discovered that Helena had deleted over 4,200 internal emails in the 72 hours between her termination and the seizure of her company laptop. She thought she'd been thorough. She hadn't. The IT department had cloud backups she didn't know about. The remaining 3, Catherine Anderson, Victoria Davis, and Richard Brown, received separate civil judgments. Each was issued a lifetime bar from holding any officer or director position at an SEC-registered entity. Their careers in finance were over, permanently. The trial began in federal court 4 months later. Judge Eleanor Sullivan presided. Attorney Caroline Bennett prosecuted for the United States government. Cable news played clips of the lobby footage on a loop for 3 straight weeks. Legal analysts broke down every frame. Body language experts dissected every sneer. Social media turned Gregory Whitman's "Give her a voucher for the deli" line into a meme that was viewed over 90 million times. The phrase 45 minutes trended on every platform for 9 consecutive days. It became shorthand, not just for what happened at Whitman, but for every time a black person was dismissed, ignored, or dehumanized in a space they had every right to occupy. The sentencing came on a Tuesday morning in October. Courtroom packed, cameras rolling, the nation watching. Gregory Whitman, 6 years in federal prison, $4.8 million in personal fines, lifetime ban from the financial services industry. Judge Sullivan read from the bench, "You inherited a company built on the trust of your community, and you spent your career proving you did not deserve that inheritance." Bradley Wilson, 4 years, $2.1 million in fines. Helena Moore, 5 years, $3.2 million in fines. Disbarred for life. The obstruction charges hit her hardest. The judge noted that destroying evidence wasn't just a crime, it was a confession. Total civil restitution across all 6 defendants, $185 million, paid into a fund administered by Sterling Holdings for every affected employee and client. Every dollar tracked, every payment documented, every wrong accounted for. But this story didn't end in a courtroom. It ended with the people who deserved to be seen. Sarah Johnson, the 24-year-old receptionist who had tried to speak up and was told to sit down, gave a televised interview 1 week after the sentencing. She sat in a studio chair with her hands folded in her lap and tears running silently down her face. She knew exactly what was happening, Sarah said. She sat there for 45 minutes and let them show her who they were. And the whole time, she was the most powerful person in the building. Sarah wiped her eyes. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just watched. And then she changed everything. Thomas Williams, the security guard who had set a glass of water beside a woman the rest of the building treated like trash, was promoted to Director of Workplace Safety at Sterling Holdings. His new salary was 4 times what he had been earning. When a reporter asked him why he had brought Madison that water, Thomas paused for a long time. Then he said, "Because somebody had to remind her she was still a human being in that room. And I figured, if nobody else was going to do it, it might as well be the other person they pretended not to see." And Madison Parker, the woman who had sat on a bench for 45 minutes and said almost nothing, launched a new initiative through her foundation. She called it the Park Avenue Audit, a free corporate climate assessment program for Fortune 1000 companies, staffed and run entirely by formerly displaced Black and brown professionals. Its mission statement was 1 sentence long. Walk in like nobody. Find out everything. 2 weeks later, the lobby of Whitman Tower looked different. The brass plaque that once read, "Whitman Financial Group, established 1908, had been replaced. The new one read, "Sterling Holdings Capital, a new standard." But the marble was the same. The 20-foot ceilings were the same. The leather bench was still there, right where Madison had sat for 45 minutes while 6 people decided she was nothing. At 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, all 1,200 employees gathered in that lobby. They stood along the hallways. They lined the mezzanine. They pressed against the glass railings on the 2nd and 3rd floors, looking down. Madison stood in the center. No podium, no microphone, no notes, just her voice. "I didn't come here that morning to catch anyone," she began. "I came here because the only way to find out what a company truly is to walk in as the person it least expects to matter." The lobby was silent, 1,200 people holding their breath. What happened to me in this lobby happens to people who look like me every single day in this country. In office buildings, in hospitals, in schools, in restaurants, in rooms where they have every right to be. She paused, looked down at her hands, then back up. The only difference is that this time the person sitting on that bench had the receipts. But most people don't. Most people sit there and take it and go home and swallow it and never tell anyone. And that is exactly why it keeps happening. She took a breath. From this day forward, this lobby has a new rule. Every single human being who walks through those doors, regardless of what they look like, what they're wearing, or what you think they're here for, is treated like they might be the chairwoman. She let that land. Because sometimes, they are. A ripple moved through the crowd. Someone started clapping. Then another. Then the whole lobby erupted, not in polite corporate applause, but in something raw and real. People were crying. People were holding each other. People who had spent years inside these walls feeling invisible were finally being seen. Madison walked to the reception desk, Sarah Johnson's old post, and unveiled a small bronze plaque mounted on the wall beside it. 5 words engraved in clean, simple letters for Sarah Johnson, who saw her. Sarah, standing in the second row, pressed her hand to her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. That evening, the 43rd floor was empty. The hallway lights had dimmed to a soft amber glow. Manhattan glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a million lights against a black sky. Madison stood alone at the glass, arms folded, forehead almost touching the window. Her reflection stared back at her, tired, quiet, still. Olivia appeared in the doorway, holding a ceramic mug, chipped, faded. The words, "World's okay, Mom," barely visible under years of coffee stains. "Had it shipped over from your apartment," Olivia said softly. "Figured you might need it tonight." Madison laughed. A real laugh, small and warm and human. She took the mug, wrapped both hands around it, sipped. She looked back out at the skyline, and for a long time, she didn't say anything at all. Because winning a fight you should never have had to fight doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival, dressed up in a silk blouse and a boardroom chair. And the only thing Madison Parker felt, standing 43 floors above a city that had tried to look through her, was tired. Proud, but tired. Before you scroll away, I want to know. Drop it in the comments. Have you ever been the person on that bench? Or, and this one's harder to answer, have you ever been the person who walked past? If this story hit something in you, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because we've got more stories coming where the receipts come out and the right people pay the bill. Somewhere right now, there's a woman sitting on a bench in a lobby. And the only thing standing between her and another 45 minutes of silence is whether the next person who walks past actually sees her. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of each other out there.
Here's the truth. Most people are nice when they think it benefits them. Nice to the boss, nice to the client, nice to everyone who looks like they have power. But the real test is how you treat someone when you think they have nothing, no power, no connections, no way to help you or hurt you. That's where your true character lives. Not in the handshake you give to someone important, in the way you treat someone you think doesn't matter at all. So, be honest with yourself tonight. How do you treat people when there's nothing in it for you? When nobody's keeping score? When you think nobody will ever find out? Because that wasn't a few. The one nobody sees is the only one that's real. Like, share and subscribe. Real stories, real justice every week. And remember, treat every person like they matter. Not because you don't know who they might be, because they are already somebody right now, just as they are.